The person responsible for the Midtown Mall massacre had a look I was far too familiar with. It was not the visage of a cold-blooded killer, but the baffled face of someone formerly possessed. I screamed in pain after I woke to find my entire body in agony and was horrified to discover someone had ripped my stomach open. I gazed up to discover my husband standing there clutching a tiny little body in his hands as he announced that he had changed his mind about becoming a father. "Let's give the tap dancers a hand!" exclaimed the talent show's master of ceremony. He then screamed as he watched the audience of mental patients pull out hacksaws and proceed to cut off their hands and hurl them towards the stage. My wife let out another scream after I snapped another finger, as she kept promising that she never cheated on me. I gazed into my newborn son's blue eyes before breaking another one of his fingers, as I knew she was lying due to the fact that neither one of us have blue eyes. Seeing someone stare at me from the crack in the ceiling tiles, I quickly alerted the staff about a potential peeping Tom. When the news vans arrived to cover the story, the police brought out another corpse from the crawl space, increasing the body count to 7. Lincoln loved to pretend he was a skydiver and would leap from the highest places in his house and land safely into his trusted beanbag chair. However, on the day that he jumped from his roof, he realized too late that he had left the chair in his bedroom. "Parkour!" my cousin shouted. It was the last thing I heard before the splat. When I saw a little girl running out of an alley crying for help, my only thought was how to save her. When I saw what was chasing her come out of the alley, my only thought was how to save myself. I was told by a psychic that I would die due to my own body failing me, so I kept myself in the best of shape to stop this from happening. I finally understood what she meant as I suffered an epileptic fit, and my tongue got lodged in my throat. Deep down in the darkness of the Marina Trench, our research submarine finally found a way for humans to breathe underwater. I don't know how long it's been since our vessel was smashed open in that rock slide, but as the cold and the darkness close in, I'm beginning to wish I could suffocate. I lay there, contemplating the senselessness of death. I wonder if the Grim Reaper would ever collect my soul, as the maggots cut their way through my body and my flesh rotted away. Hey, if you'd like to know more about me, check out my website. In 1982, after the first execution by lethal injection was carried out, we thought we had advanced to a new moral stage of crime and punishment. 100 years later, when the drugs wore off and the bodies started turning, we wished we hadn't. Samantha knew her husband Jim was cheating on her. What Jim didn't know was that his lovely wife came from a family of man-eating monsters who didn't take betrayal very well. On the set of a horror film production, I was really impressed by the makeup done on the actress who was playing the role of a demon. I was horrified when the makeup artist later told me that the demon is actually a full CGI character. I promised to let her go if she read the words that I had written down. I smiled as I listened to her screams of agony as she attempted to read the braille that I had written on the boiling hot frying pan. I called it the Giving Mirror because when I told it I was sad, the next day there was a beautiful flower that made me happy, and every other problem I gave the mirror, it gave a solution back. The mirror had never been wrong before, but I was still a little nervous as I picked up the hammer that appeared the next day, after I had told it I was jealous of my baby sister. As he laid on his deathbed, Homer begged his wife to take care of the children. After all, he didn't want to die alone. I woke up and started weeping while cradling my wife's body as the cancer finally killed her. I cursed the genie who fulfilled my wish of spending the rest of eternity with my wife and trapping me in this endless time loop of repeating the same 5 minutes. I wish for the genie to let me spend the rest of my life with my wife. I immediately regretted that decision after waking up in the coffin alongside her rotting corpse. Hey, I'm a plastic surgeon, and I consider my work a form of art. This is the reason why I want my patients to feel every cut as I give them their new faces. Opening her eyes after heart surgery, Helen looked around her for her husband and children. She then began screaming when she saw the flames all around and saw a misshapen creature step forward and say in a raspy voice, "They lost you on the operating table. Now you're all mine." When my friends said they wanted to bury me in the sand, I thought it would be fun. That was until they filled the hole I stood in with cement. Todd heard the telephone ring and went to answer it. He then felt a chill when he heard a weak, raspy voice tell him that he would die later that night, and he recognized it as his own. I lay there weeping and begging my father to stop, as he always takes his jokes too far. He just stood there smiling and smacking me across the face with my amputated arms, while telling me to stop hitting myself. James had never realized that years of safety goggleless welding had left tiny metal slivers in his eyes. Until his doctor turned on the MRI machine. My parents raised me with this old school belief that children should be seen and not heard, so I was considered a mute for most of my youth. I arrived home to find my parents sitting there with a content smile on their face, while my newborn wept silently as his mouth had been sewn shut. I looked at my Fitbit and was delighted to discover I had slept for a full 8 hours last night. Sewing my newborn daughter's mouth shut last night was the best decision I ever made. I reached for my credit card and placed a bid for $2,000 and was delighted when I won and got to choose my prize. I watched in excitement while listening to her screams as they followed my instructions and began to cut thin strips off her eyeballs. Hey, remember to hit that like button, subscribe/follow if you're new, and check out my website for everything about me. Thanks for watching, guys. It's very dark on the highway, but I know I ran over something a while back. That's why I don't want to look in the rearview mirror, because I'm driving at 100 kilometers per hour, and I can still hear it chasing me. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, sang Little Cat as she stared up at the sky. Her brother looked up himself before saying, "That's not a star. It's a missile, and I think it's coming closer." As a boy, Maxwell longed to go to heaven when he died and did everything he could to live a good, honest life. Unfortunately for Maxwell, it turns out that he liked to sleepwalk, and that's when his evil side came out. I have been locked up in this room for hours with music constantly blaring, as my captors refuse to let me sleep. They know my dreams become reality, and all I can fantasize about is their bodies turning inside out. Hey, if you'd like to know more about me, I wiped the sweat from my forehead and held myself steady as the school drug dog approached my locker. They're trained to find drugs, not body parts, I assured myself. I swore to my wife on our wedding day that I would never give her up or let her down. After watching the undead hordes advancing towards us, I felt no regrets as I flung her to the ground before running around a corner and deserting her. After being a passenger in my own body for months, I finally spotted a group of survivors. I hope the group knows to put it between the eyes, as my pain is unbearable, and I hate the taste of human flesh. The townspeople begged and pleaded with me to release their children, so I decided to show a small bit of mercy and open the cave entrance. I played a quick tune on my pipe as the families finally reunited, and watched in satisfaction as the parents began to savagely attack their children. It was a bright sunny afternoon, so I opened the curtains and turned the lights off. The sun went out with a soft click. I got very worried after my hair started to stand on end, as I knew that meant you were in danger. I realized that something was seriously wrong after feeling the hair suddenly retreating back inside me. Apparently, you can glitch in real life. Now I'm falling through the earth, quickly heading for the core. Pain shot through Anne as she pulled herself up from the floor. She quietly cursed herself for the 20th failed suicide attempt, and knew she would have to endure her husband's abuse for another night. My wife has always been clingy, and I can tell it began to affect her relationship with our son David. She's currently 99 months pregnant, and David constantly begs for her to finally give birth to him, but she keeps insisting that it's still too soon. I desperately tried to find the wedding ring, knowing that my husband would get very angry if I didn't. I had promised that I would never leave evidence in a crime scene again. We all clapped and cheered as the mime carried out his act in the middle of the sidewalk. We finally realized that the invisible box act was real, while listening to his screams of agony and watched as his bones shattered. My friend and I were playing spy, and I hit him to knock him out like they do in the movies. In the movies, they always wake up after a bit, so Why isn't he? I decided to be proactive this morning and went to 5 children's cycling parks. I watched the news in delight as they reported the 5 children that had been decapitated by razor wire I had put across the paths. My family has been so nice and hasn't started any fights since my legs became paralyzed. I will lose my arms too if it means keeping the peace. I always thought nobody would ever be dumb enough to keep a zombie alive. But I'm just not ready to say goodbye yet. Todd woke from the nightmare he was having and ran to his parents' room, knowing they would protect him. Upon opening their door, all he saw was a bottomless pit, and as he felt himself falling towards it, he realized he'd never wake from this nightmare. Seeing a new Cringe Compilation show up on my subscription page always filled me with excitement. But that excitement quickly disappeared after hidden camera footage from inside my house started appearing in them. My wife decided to set up cameras and speakers around the house so that she could keep a closer eye on her dementia-stricken father. I rolled on the floor laughing while listening to his screams of terror, as I had played the sounds of gunfire over the speakers, which triggered his PTSD. I was shocked after I opened the paper to discover my ex-wife had intentionally crashed her private plane, killing all of her extended family that were on board. I had only intended to kill her after I hypnotized her to crash the plane, but wiping out that bitch's family seemed like a bonus. I had convinced everyone we should go out and celebrate as we've all done so well lately. I couldn't help but smile as I watched the recovering alcoholics throw away months of hard work. The police officer arrived at the house of a terrible accident to find an 11-year-old boy, dressed in green, on the ground dead. The officer then spoke to the boy's parents, who explained that their son Peter had jumped out of his bedroom window, convinced he could fly. My mother always promised me that she loved me and would never raise a hand to hurt me. I watched mutely as the man she hired cut into my stomach to retrieve the kidney she so desperately required. I watched her collapse to the ground after I used the knife to sever her spine. My girlfriend had always threatened to run away and leave me, but now she will never be able to leave. As he watched the Super Bowl, Ross sat excitedly rooting for his favorite team. Beside him, his phone buzzed and a text message from his wife flashed on screen. "Honey, don't lose the bet you made. There are men here saying they'll kill me if you do." The coach blew his whistle and demanded that the boys do 1,000 push-ups despite the rain. As he struggled in the mud, Hank immediately realized where he was and began to wish he had been a better person back when he was alive. My mother had this saying that people have layers like fruit and that you just have to peel away the bad stuff to get to the goodness inside. I regretted telling this to my 5-year-old son after I walked in to find him using a knife to peel the skin off his newborn brother's eyeballs. Morgan gritted his teeth as he steered his car through the huge line of traffic. Beside him sat the bound and gagged body of his daughter's abusive boyfriend, who was about to learn what happened when you hit his daughter. After my father was killed in a drive-by shooting, I would always refuse to allow any guns in my home, which annoyed my husband. I now lay on the bathroom floor listening to the sounds of my undead children trying to get through the door, and wishing I had a gun to defend myself. Hey, remember to hit that like button, subscribe/follow if you're new, and check out my website for everything about me. Thanks for watching, guys.